ordered the desegregation of Boston schools. Garrity ruled the Boston School Committee had deliberately created two school systems, one white, one black, with very few minority teachers. Judge Garrity mandated minority hiring and forced busing. Today, Boston public school students are overwhelmingly black and Hispanic, and the number of black teachers is still disproportionately low in violation of federal law. The defense in the corruption trial of former probation commissioner John O'Brien is asking for a mistrial. The motion came after one witness admitted discussing the case with another witness. O'Brien and two associates are accused of rigging the hiring system at the department to benefit politically connected applicants and then covering it up. In sports, last night in Oakland, the Red Sox lost to the A's 4-3. They play again this afternoon. In the forecast for the Boston area, plenty of sunshine today with highs in the mid-70s. Overnight lows in the mid-50s. Should be a mostly sunny Sunday. Tomorrow's temperatures in the upper 70s. Looking ahead to Monday, more sunshine and highs in the upper 70s. It is 60 degrees in Boston. This is 90.9 WBUR.
We're funded by you, our listeners, and by the law firm of Nutter, McLennan and Fish. Counsel to leading companies and institutions for more than a century. Client-focused, collaborative. This is Nutter. Online at nutter.com. Kimball Fruit Farm in Pepperell, a fourth-generation farm practicing eco-friendly integrated pest management with farmers markets throughout Greater Boston. KimballFruitFarm.com. And PBS, with American Experience's Freedom Summer, the 1964 campaign to end racial inequality in Mississippi. Tuesday at 9 on PBS.
This is Weekend Edition from NPR News. I'm Scott Simon. Sunni fighters have seized a border post on the Iraq-Syria frontier this morning, making it the first official border gate in Iraq controlled by militants. If these fighters are indeed part of ISIS, this brings them one step closer to creating an Islamic caliphate that extends from the Mediterranean Sea to Iran. NPR's Alice Fordham is in the capital, Baghdad, which has been home to both Sunnis and Shiites. Alice, thanks for being with us.
You're welcome.
And what have you heard about this?
Right, well, as you say, today there has been both a significant gain by Sunni-led militants, and interestingly, there has been a big show of force by Shiite-led militants here in Baghdad. So, to take you first to the west of Iraq, which is a place where Sunni militants, led by the extremist group known as the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, have been strong for some time. We've received word from security forces that they have taken a border town with Syria called Qaim after fierce fighting, and there's still fighting going on the outskirts. It's a strategic place, but it's also very significant because there's a strong and growing presence by the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria on the other side of the border in Syria. This could enable arms and fighters to flow more easily from Syria into Iraq. As you say, moving towards the goal of this group, which is to create a unified Sunni Islamic state in this territory.
In recent days, you've had Shiite leaders in Iraq ask for volunteers to join the fight against Islamic militants. How would you describe what's going on in those areas?
People were initially, I think, very frightened by the big push of these Sunni forces into significant parts of Iraq. But in a way, that fear has now been kind of distilled into a defiance and an aggression. And I was in Sadr City, which is a big Shiite area of Baghdad today. And what's happened there is that thousands of volunteers have responded to a call to rejoin what was known as the Mahdi Army militia, which was crucially important during Iraq's civil war, which went from 2006 to 2008. And these people see themselves as stepping forward to defend particularly holy Shiite parts of the country against this Sunni onslaught. It was fascinating being out there today. It was very impressive. There's a lot of people there, but it certainly wasn't organized. There are people marching in mismatched uniforms, people marching in white shrouds to symbolize that they want to be martyrs, that they want to die for their beliefs. So there's a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of fear, and frankly, the whole situation is a bit frightening.
Alice, how does all of that translate to the feelings that Baghdadis have about Prime Minister al-Maliki? Because certainly in the United States, a lot of people are leveling a finger at him for permitting sectarian problems to fester and calling on him to make some kind of accommodation in his government.
Exactly, and I think it's a very fair comment to say that the problems that exist in Iraq, the support that these extremist groups have gained from the Sunni population, wouldn't have happened had the Sunnis not felt so marginalised by Maliki's 8 years in power. You know, Maliki's a Shiite, and a lot of these people feel very discriminated against by him. And you'll speak to a lot of people in Baghdad and in other parts of Iraq who do blame him for what's happened. However, I would say that the situation in Iraq has been very problematic, at least for the last 6 months. Sunni militants have had a lot of control of the western province of Anbar, and often Maliki has been able to manipulate that situation so that people feel threatened and they turn to him, they see him as a strong leader. So he's not going anywhere yet.
NPR's Alice Fordham in Baghdad. Thanks so much.
You're welcome.
Israel has arrested more than 300 Palestinians over the past week after 3 Israeli teenagers were abducted while hitchhiking in the West Bank. Some of those Palestinians who are locked up now will likely be held under what's called administrative detention. It's a legal provision allowing people to be held for extended periods of time with no charges. Israel says this helps prevent acts of terrorism. Palestinians say it's abusive. Scores of Palestinians already in Israeli custody have been on a hunger strike for almost 2 months, trying to change the system. NPR's Emily Harris reports.
Samar Issawi is celebrated among Palestinians for barely eating over most of 8 months. He took water, vitamins, and minerals, lost a lot of weight, and was eventually hospitalized.
هي بتصير المسألة إن بتتعلق يعني بعد فترة تقريبا.
After 40 or 50 days, you're dizzy. You can't walk. I was in a wheelchair. I could make it to the bathroom. That's it.
Issawi won early release from what could have been more than a decade in prison. His sister Shireen is in prison right now. She started a hunger strike, but after 2 weeks, their mother Layla asked her to stop.
It was harder for me with my girl. Because she's a girl, she has a weak body. In this case, I interfered. I sent her a message with a lawyer saying, "You know what I went through when your brother was on hunger strike. I can't handle it again. If you continue, you might come home, but you won't find a mother there."
Issawi had originally been arrested for shooting at Israelis and providing weapons for other attacks. He was first freed in a prisoner swap, then rearrested for traveling out of the territory allowed on parole. Issawi views hunger strikes as a weapon of war.
The only weapon we have is our stomach. It's the only way we can fight the prison authorities.
2 months ago, several hundred Palestinians in Israeli prisons went on hunger strike. At least 80 have been hospitalized. They are trying to limit the use of administrative detention, a law that lets people be held indefinitely with no charges, just approval of a judge. Palestinian lawyer Fadi Kawasmi represents more than a dozen hunger strikers.
If you want to arrest someone, the maximum period should be 6 months, and then you either release the detainee or put him on trial in order for him to be able to defend himself.
Right now, each 6-month prison term is renewable. Kawasmi says if administrative detainees are involved in terrorism, Israel's intelligence service ought to be able to unearth evidence to make and back up charges. But Peter Lerner, a spokesman for the Israeli military, says revealing evidence could be dangerous.
The disclosure of the evidence could, in many instances, alert other members of the terrorist cell, enable them to increase their effectiveness of their attacks, evade capture, or relocate and shift their weapons and explosives.
Professor Hillel Frisch at Israel's Begin Sadat Center for Strategic Studies says there is no way Israel will give up administrative detention, and Israelis aren't paying much attention to the hunger strike. It's